That's fine. We'll trim the fronts.
Yeah, trim the thing. Okay. All right. So I am really excited to be talking to Laura Chattington today. And the reason for this conversation is that we are going to talk about how to get going with your career, as in like get over the overwhelm and things like that, working in a professional or in a corporate environment where you feel stuck, and where we can go from overworked, underpaid, and stuck, perhaps even, to really unlocking the next sort of step and upgrade for you. So we are talking to Laura today, and I'm going to introduce my beautiful friend and lady here that I've just got to know. So Laura Chattington is from Activate My Career Live Masterclass. And she helps professionals to go from overworked and underpaid, or even stuck, to unlocking their next career upgrade in 3 months, securing their job in the downturn, and having consistent career successes again and again and again. So Laura is the lead trainer and one of the most dynamic and engaging speakers training in this space, helping her audience experience breakthroughs and personal quantum leaps at this particular masterclass. And you may wonder, well, who is Laura? Well, so she has nearly 20 years experience directing multi-million pound global communications accounts, managing multi-disciplined teams, and communicating up to C-suite level executives on a consistent basis. She has also delivered and facilitated events and trainings all around the world with both individuals and teams from companies including Oracle, Deloitte, I'm not sure how to say that, IBM, NHS, the True North Partners, Social Finance, and Facebook as well. So welcome, Laura, to this interview and to this chat that we're going to have today. It would be great if you just said hello and where you're based at the moment. Hi. And those things, so people can sort of just introduce yourself.
Thank you so much for that introduction. It's awesome to be here. My name is Laura. I'm actually based in London, but I almost think it doesn't matter anymore, does it? I'm constantly talking to people around the world. And in fact, I was on a call with Sydney this morning. I'm on with the States later. I feel like we're in a global post-pandemic time, and it's really good because we can make such good connections, and everyone's very willing to network and to talk, I guess. So thank you for having me today.
Yeah, I'm so thrilled. So we're going to dive straight into a interview and talk about the things, how you help people, etc., and how these people can get some guidance with your brilliance. So what inspired you to get started?
Yeah, and it's obviously, it's a great question, and I sort of think back to all the things when you're introducing me those 20 years of corporates and working in, I was like, oh, and actually I can sort of the dots join up, but actually I can remember one perfectly normal day when I received this sort of unusual meeting request from my boss, and I was sitting in his office feeling uncomfortable, and he starts to say, you know, Laura, we're reorganizing and we're going to be making redundancies and we're going to have to let you go. And I'm sure you've had one of those moments where it kind of takes a few seconds for what someone said to register. And as you can imagine, I was shocked, I was confused, and I definitely didn't see it coming. And I was like, how can they want to let me go? I'm like the key director on the key project for the business. How come they want to let me go? And actually, I found out later that my colleague James, who was like the content director, they were keeping him. And I was like, oh, that doesn't make sense. And you know, when these types of things happen, you sort of start questioning yourself. And at that time, I was pretty clear what I wanted. I wanted to have a successful career. I wanted to buy a house. I wanted to travel. I wanted to have financial security. And I also wanted to have, you know, purpose and meaning in what I was doing at work. And I was sort of slogging my guts out for this job, working all hours, you know, up emails, late at night, weekends, all of that stuff. And I was sort of sacrificing my life for the job. And I actually realized later, down as I joined those dots up, there were kind of other signals of the same kind of problem. I remember going into a big presentation with some senior partners where I'd worked really hard, delivered the project, went in and sort of had a horrible experience and messed it up. I also noticed that I really felt intimidated by those C-suite level, you know, the senior executives when I was in those high pressured meetings. And I noticed that people like James, who were sort of less experienced than me, were getting promoted, getting pay rise, getting picked for projects and all of that stuff. But I was sort of stuck in this pattern and I just didn't know what it was. And actually that Christmas, when after I got made redundant, I was at my parents' house and, you know, everyone was at, you know, having champagne and having a nice time. And I was like miserable. And I sort of fast forward from there and sort of letting it percolate a bit. I actually went and got another job, and I went and trained in NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. I realized there was a communication thing. So I went and trained in NLP and went to Toastmasters. And actually I sort of unpacked what had gone on. And what I started to realize, what I started to see was that, you know, that James, there were differences in the way James and I operated. And what James would do when he was going into the office, he would spend time every week communicating with our boss, dropping into the senior partner, you know, senior directors' offices, interacting, going to teachings, going for drinks, going for lunch, all of those things. And there was a reason why James was doing that. There was a reason why James was doing that because he was wanting to be seen and put himself forward.
He was building relationships.
He was building relationships.
Which is what business is made on. Yeah.
Right, absolutely. And at the time, you know, those senior managers those senior managers weren't seeing me because they weren't seeing who was coordinating all the work, who were running the team meetings, who were liaising with the client. They weren't seeing any of that. They were looking at what was in front of them, right? And I sort of realized at that moment that James and I had a completely different view between how we approached our career. And actually, I was one of those, I call them slogging pros, working hard, you know, taking on more responsibility, being a good professional, you know, getting the job done, delivering things. And then there are strategic pros like James, and who don't just do their work and their projects, but they actually spend time building relationships
and nurturing.
Yeah. I mean, you said it. And it was like one of those, oh, right. And I was like, okay, I've got to figure out how to do this. How do I build relationships? And, you know, not just relationships, but how do I do it with that senior team? And if it's okay, I just spend a couple of minutes on what kind of happened post that time. You know, I was looking at, I did the NLP training, I did the Toastmasters, and I started looking more strategically about my career. And actually, I was applying the tools and connecting with people and building relationships at work, and really being, you know, much better at how I went about my job, right? And it was okay kind of at the level of my peers, but something, you know, that there was something else, something that didn't feel right. And when I got into those more senior interactions, I got that, I felt the, you know, that sort of imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
Oh,
Are they going to listen to me?
yeah, exactly. And I felt like in those situations, I felt like such an introvert, right? Which was like, what's going on? And you know, you know when you feel like you can't talk or admit, you feel like you can't talk or admit that you have these fears and these self-doubts, and actually you kind of, you feel like you need to be going into work, feel, you know, like I'm on it, I know what I'm doing, I know, because you're at a level where you have to be competent, and actually exposing those fears would damage your credibility, damages your credibility and your reputation at work. And it's just, it shouldn't be the case, but it's something that the corporate mentality doesn't allow you to do, right? No matter how supportive they say you are, you really feel like you lose that credibility. And what's worse is that kind of mental, that kind of mentally ingrains that you should be able to do everything you're expected to at work. And that kind of adds more self-doubt, right? And adds that imposter more on your shoulder. And thankfully, what I was able to do, because I had done the NLP, is notice the patterns. I sort of noticed that there was this internal conflict. And actually, what I decided to do is, you know, it wasn't something I could solve myself. So I actually went back to the NLP world and found a coach who could help me. And she said, you know, I see it, I'm sure you're the same, Jenny. I see it in so many clients, this kind of internal resistance, right?
Yes, absolutely. And, you know, I really, what came to me when you said that, it's almost like with the corporate world, yes, they say they're supportive of your flaws, because it's like flaws, but actually the best way is to go and get the support you need somewhere else, possibly, and then not meaning that you're just showing a facade, but kind of just, you're showing the good parts of yourself. And if there is you know, a resistance, if there is an hindrance within you, that's really, you know, you being invited to kind of go and sort that out in some sort of way, shape or form, with some coaching or some clearings, like, you know, with this way, because I don't think that's not ever going to be completely okay. It's like, come at your best.
Well, I think, you know what, I think it is, and again, having sort of worked in these environments, I think it's okay if you're a junior to walk in and say, hey, I'm feeling a bit unsure about myself going into this presentation or this meeting, but once you know, and I work with people who are middle management and senior management, and you know, have high levels of success, but they cannot, you cannot be seen to have, you know, these self-doubts and these fears, and no matter what that corporate environment says, it is not an environment to be open about that. So actually I went off, as you know, I went off I realized I couldn't deal with it on my own, and I needed to get outside help. And actually, when my coach was like, okay, lots of people have this going on, you know, I was like, oh, thank God it's
not just me.
It's not just me. And it's such a relief, right? Right, it's not just me, and I'm not the only one with those internal struggles, and actually just I'm normal, because you get that sort of thought process going on, and it builds and builds and builds. And actually, after sort of experimenting with all these tools and working with other people, I actually noticed that there were certain things that always worked, and I saw patterns that always, regardless of the industry, regardless of the person, regardless of the C-suite, regardless of whether you're introverted or extroverted, there are things that always work. And actually, you needed to, number one, you needed to decide, you needed to make a decision to go for whatever that next level is, or decide that enough is enough, things have got to change. And because the professionals in those situations, that they're so busy all the time, they haven't got time to do a month of NLP training or whatever. They need a system they know has worked before that they can sort of integrate on top of what they do in their incredibly busy weeks. And actually, after applying these tools, everything changed for me, and I've seen it change for my clients. And I think one of the big switches that kind of unlocks the door a bit is that those senior interactions, the decision maker interactions, instead of like, oh, I've just got to get through them and do whatever I've got to do, is that I saw every one of those interactions as an opportunity, to build relationships and be seen. And, you know, I got paid better. I got jobs I wanted. I got to work on projects that I wanted to work on. Clients have got 5-figure salary increases. They've gone for job interviews where they failed repeatedly before, or sort of promotional interviews internally where, you know, twice before they haven't got to that next level, and then they sort of fly. And you know, what's really good about this stuff is it's not just a one-off thing, right? It's not just like, oh, okay, ta-ding. It's
an ongoing, you know, knowing that every time something comes up a bit, you're meant to clear it. So just tell me more about the tools, because how do you actually do this now? So that was my next question, because you did say NLP, but having these sort of fast action or sort of easy tools to access and use on a regular basis, what are they?
Yeah, so actually sort of using my own experience and working with clients, what I realized is that you know, there were kind of 3 key steps that people need to go through that kind of creates the system. And as I said before, you know, number one is decide.
Making decisions.
And I mentioned those slogging pros. I was one of them. Slogging pros are sort of waiting to be picked, right? They're waiting for the career end of year review. They're waiting for someone in the working environment to notice them and pick them and go, right, you're doing a good job. But actually, it's funny how that kind of doesn't happen, right?
No.
And you know, and there's a reason why, and that's because they're focused on work all the time. They're focused on doing their job and delivering their job. And also, they've never decided for themselves that they wanted to be picked and make that decision to go for what it is that they're going for. And when you don't know the destination, when you haven't made that decision for where you're going for, how are you going to get there?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I talk about intentional goal setting, you know, intentional goal setting. What is it that you really want? Be really clear with yourself, and, you know, take some time out really to set those goals and say, right, okay, what is it that I really want? What is it that I don't want? And only with clarity, you can take those decisions, or say, right, I'm going for this. And I think that's probably another thing with the slogging pro. They won't even have time to think about it because they're slogging away.
They're not even thinking about it. And we talk, it's so simple, isn't it? It's so simple, but it is absolutely critical. First of all.
Yeah.
And you know, and that's the slogging pros. And the strategic pros make a decision.
Yeah.
They make a decision, whether it is, I want the next title upgrade, I want to get that job, I want to go on that project, I want to get that success, whatever it is. They make that decision, and actually they work out the path once they've made the decision, exactly what you were just describing. And they really decide to go all in. Strategic pros decide to go all in and become the person they know they need to be to get to where they want to get to.
So, I mean, this applies for entrepreneurs and career
professionals,
right? Professionals, because it's the same. You've got to be really clear on where you're going. So so you said the first step is to decide.
That's the first step.
Number 2.
So number 2, communicate. And And actually, when I think back to when I was in that job with James, we actually, our worlds were completely different, right? Our worlds, we had a view of the world which was completely different. And slogging pros who are focused on those KPIs and the projects and the deliverables and everything like that, they're kind of living in the project world, right? Yeah. They're living in the project world, which isn't where promotions happen. It isn't where those relationships are. And kind of no matter what job you do, no matter what field you're in, you know, there are humans involved, right? There are humans involved. And it's all about the people world, and this is where those strategic pros operate. The people world is where those relationships are built and the interconnections and where the decisions get made and the promotions happen and all of those things, which is why it's really, really important to be able to communicate in that people world. And you get noticed, right? You get noticed, you can influence others, you can you can promote yourself without sort of feeling uncomfortable and sleazy. You can communicate with those senior stakeholders without feeling intimidated, and everything really starts to unlock once you start opening up that kind of communication within that people world. So that's the second one. So we've
Number
got
3.
decide. It's easy, and there's a reason that it's easy, is because it you know, professionals who are going through this process are doing it under pressure of working all the time, right? So number 3 is activate. And you will probably remember the days, it's a good analogy, the days before GPS, right? You remember that? Where
you had the map.
We had maps, right?
A to Z London.
A to Z of London, and you're like a mini A to Z.
Yeah, mini A to Z on the passenger seat, like
Yeah, and you remember, like you'd set off on family holidays, and you know, kids in the back, parents in the front, somebody reading the map, and you sort of set off all eager beaver. And then after a few hours, and we've gone down the wrong turning and the wrong road, and down the wrong motorway or off the wrong, all of that, and everyone's getting really frustrated and everyone's arguing, and and you kind of arrive at your destination, and although you're there, everyone's frazzled and cross and things like that. And then Google arrived with Google Maps, right? Google arrived with Google Maps, and not only did it make things so much easier, but actually it gave you the option to get for the shortest route, right? You could say, I want the shortest route. And I mean, who doesn't want the shortest route, right? Everyone. Yeah. And so getting somewhere new requires a proven GPS map, right? Yes. And when you have a specific plan and you know you're going to get there in the shortest routes, everything will start to materialize. And while those slogging pros are going down all the wrong turnings and down the wrong roads, strategic pros have programmed their GPS to get there in the shortest time, build those relationships, operate in that people world, and activate their career. And it's really about making, your career, your career sort of dreams a reality. It's really about that. And I think for the shortest route, you need those 3 steps: decide, communicate, and activate. And it's like the 20% that you put on top of everything else you're doing. And actually, you don't need any more steps. No. You don't need any more steps. You don't need to overcomplicate things. No. You just need to start with that decision.
Yeah, that's really powerful. So my next question would be, what is actually holding people back?
That's a great question. And again, as you know, there are lots and lots and lots of things that hold people back. And we actually go through a whole load of them in the masterclass. We go over the system and we go through some of the things that hold people back. But actually, one of the ones I see with my clients a lot is that feeling when you sort of have an impulse to do something, like I'm going to go and raise my hand for that, or I'm going to ask that question, or I'm going to do that meeting, I'm going to chair that meeting, present, or whatever it is, going to build that relationship. And 1 minute you're like, yep, I'm going to go and do it. And then sort of 1 second later, you're kind of like, oh, and you kind of get that resistance, right? You get that that internal resistance. And it's like that dialogue in your head where, what if I mess it up? What if I look stupid? What if one of the things I hear a lot is, what if they ask me questions and I don't know the answers? What if I just, and all those what ifs, right? And there's probably a series of things that didn't go exactly as you planned. And you make mistakes, and at some point those mistakes and those experiences kind of filter in deep down at that sort of deep level, and you sort of come to the conclusion that I'm not good enough. And I see that a lot. I'm not good enough. But what if you're not who you think you are? And what if you can be way more than you think you can? And what if it's just a story that you're telling yourself? And if it is, would you be willing to change?
Yeah.
And actually, I always think your past doesn't define your future.
No.
And there's a lovely quote by Joseph Campbell, and he says, "The cave you fear to enter holds the treasure that you seek."
Yes, always.
The cave you fear to enter holds the treasure that you seek. And I like to say action is the elimination of all fearful interaction. Because actually no one is born with this stuff, right? No one's born an amazing communicator, not Obama, not Jobs, not me, not you, nobody. It is a learned skill. And when you follow the system, when you use the tools, you get the results. So that's kind of one of the, and it's, confidence related. It's one of the things that holds people back. I see it all the time.
If you had to say there was anything else holding them back, so I mean, in my world, we talk about these negative subconscious beliefs, and you would know with the NLP, they are subconscious beliefs. Like we have this bank of like 95% that is actually holding all these beliefs that we don't access. But what else would it be? Because yes, we're building up a story, consciously or subconsciously, about who we think we are. And then, so that kind of, okay, so we say, right, okay, this is what's holding me back. What else would it be apart from beliefs or stories?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right, and those and I know that you do a lot of work with that and those subconscious beliefs. And I like your term that we bank it. Yeah, and it's a bank. Not a good. It's not.
Like, there it is.
And the going much deeper in that is important and part of the process. But there are actually other things that again I see that through the people that I work with, and I give you an example, like not having enough time, right? Haven't got enough time, haven't got enough money, all of those things. And actually another one in that kind of corporate environment are people, and we sort of touched on it a bit earlier, people working and the people around them. And there's actually a really nice metaphor for the kind of naysayers around you. Maybe that's at home, maybe that's in the workplace. And the metaphor is about giraffes and turtles. And actually giraffes and turtles, interestingly, they occupy the same space. But they have a different worldview. Right? And so giraffes can be in the same geographical location as the turtle, but the giraffe eats from the top of the trees. And actually the turtles move through the grass. And this is what happens in your life. All people, because we eat at different levels of our vision, right? We eat at different levels of our vision. And when you're a giraffe and you're up here and you get criticism from those turtles, you know, the turtles are kind of reporting up from their level, yeah, but they don't understand things from your perspective. And I kind of, you know, when I think back over my career, I've sort of lost opportunities because I'm listening to the murmurings of those turtles. And actually, the reason, fun fact here, the reason that giraffes, that I use a metaphor for the giraffes, is because they actually have a heart that is 11 kilos, massive. And the reason that it's so big is because it has to pump the blood up to the top of the giraffe neck. And actually, if the giraffe bends over to where the turtle is, it will pass out. It will literally pass out
because it just can't do that sort of movement, because
just can't get down to that level, because when you're built to be tall, you are at this different level, and you will endanger your position if you lower yourself down.
That's really, yeah, it's kind of a really good metaphor, isn't it?
Yeah. And actually, there's, as I said, there's nothing wrong with being the turtle. You know, there's nothing wrong with the turtles. They are literally reporting into you from their perspective of the world. But they might be saying things like, don't do it, it's not the right time, you know, wait until things are better, maybe you need to do, you know, all that stuff, because they want you to stay where they are, right? They want you to stay where they are, and they can't see things from your vision up here. And they're not wrong, they're just reporting from down there. And it, you know, and you cannot explain to those turtles, those naysayers, what, you know, your perspective. And if you're serious and you're not just curious, and if you're a strategic pro and not just a slogging pro, you don't want to let anyone else getting in the way of your success. Absolutely. Because it's about, you know, it's the improvement in your life, in your career, and you becoming the person you know you need to become. And it's time to go all in on yourself. Absolutely. Right now.
Absolutely. So I would love for you to share what we would like and to invite to, because what's the next step here? Because if you are a slogging pro and you want to get into more of a strategic pro, Laura has got a very good solution.
Yes. Well, so the answer is to come and join the masterclass. And the masterclass is for people who are stuck in their careers and they want to be unlocking the next level, whatever that is, in the next 3 months to their careers. And as we said, you know, it's awesome because you use it again and again and again and again. And so the best thing to do, come to the masterclass. All you need to do is get your ticket at www.activatemycareerlive.com/Jenny, and tell the spelling just to check is GENNYE, so /Jenny. And actually get the VIP ticket. And the reason to get the VIP ticket is because you have the VIP session where you can come on the Q&A and get your questions answered. And also you get to network with the other people. And that's hugely, hugely valuable. And there are some other bonuses. So go to www.activatemycareerlive.com/Jenny. And we look forward to seeing you there.
Thank you so much, Laura. And thank you everyone for watching. We'll see you at the masterclass.
Yeah, it's brilliant. Thank you so much for having me. It has been a pleasure to speak with you.
Thank you.